Hi folks, Joe Nally here. This video is a quick look into the workflow behind mixing a full concert band audio. It's very involved. There's a lot of learning curve with the software, but it's doable. The software that I use at least is affordable. The equipment that I use, you don't have to be as elaborate. I'm going to give you a look at the process. I've just completed Fandango, mixing the audio for Fandango for the Bel Air Community Band in Bel Air, Maryland. I've also mixed over these COVID times for Bay Winds in Annapolis and Chesapeake Concert Band in Lutherville, Timonium. All of these projects were full concert band, 40 to 50 members submitting audio. And so what I'm going to show you today is what I do from the first submission, getting it prepped, getting it loaded in, and some of the tips and tricks along the way that I've developed and discovered. So this kind of thing is doable for anyone. The software is not necessarily expensive. There are freeware options for a lot of this stuff. And if you have a computer, most computers can handle the audio side of things. Video gets a little trickier. But so let's just go ahead and dive in. I have just received a submission. An alto sax player has just emailed me a video. So the very first thing I do, you can see here on screen, I've got Audacity, which is a freeware program, opened up. And so when I get a video submission, I load the video into Audacity and get a look at the audio. Okay, so what I'm checking for here is, first of all, that it's not clipping all over the place, because if there's a couple of clips here and there, they're usually going to be okay in the mix unless they're really egregious, in which case I would be able to silence them as long as there's just a couple. So you're seeing here a little couple of clips. These red areas are clipping audio. This is not tremendously bad, and I would certainly be able to use this as is, I think. And so what I would typically do is I would go ahead and I would go ahead and normalize this just to bring it down just a little bit to see how far those clips were clipped. Now that doesn't eliminate the distortion. When you normalize, you're not getting rid of something that's distorted in the audio. It's just showing you a little bit of how distorted it was. So it wasn't too bad, and I would normally listen through this at those red points and make sure they're going to be okay, but I know that this is going to be okay. So I would go up here and I would export it as a WAV file, and then I collect all my WAV files together as a first step, and then I typically will load them all at the same time. So there we go. We've got this alto sax player loaded and ready to go. So then what I do is I will come into my DAW, my digital audio workstation software. In my case, it is Reaper. Reaper is a very affordable program. It's basically free to download and to use on a trial basis, which can be extended for as long as you want to not pay them, more or less. You do have a bit of an annoying thing to click through at the beginning, but go ahead and pay them the $60 or whatever, because this program is incredibly powerful. It can do everything. Now, like all these kinds of editing programs, video and audio, there's a big learning curve if you're just coming to this. So I would suggest that you dedicate some time on the front end to watching the YouTube tutorials, of which there are countless. Just any question you have, you can usually find Kenny Joya, I think, is the primary tutorial guy over with Reaper, and you can find pretty much anything from him. Anyway, so what I have here, you'll see that I have what seems to be a fairly elaborate setup within Reaper. And this, now that I've done 6 of these, I have a kind of template that I start with that has a rough balance baked in. But every song is different, every ensemble is different. Okay, so just from a 40,000 foot, what you're seeing here is you're seeing the individual tracks for individual instruments the submissions. Each have their own track, and then I've collected them into a folder, and then the folders are balanced in the master bus. Okay. So what I would do, I'm going to go ahead and work with a clarinet submission, and I'm going to use myself. I submitted, I had to record quite a lot of audio for this project. We had some pretty big holes. So I did record a clarinet 1 lead line, and I'm going to go ahead and show you the process of getting that loaded in. So as I said, I kind of have a template already for things. So I have a good starting point. I just went ahead and duplicated one of my track that's already in there just so I can show you what I'm doing. And this is clarinet 1. And you can see what I've got is I have the stereo width set at 10%, and I have it panned. And so what I do is I pan each section. I spread the section a little bit. First of all, I narrow them all down because you don't want a stereo audio from submissions. You want a mono audio. And in Reaper, that means that you adjust the width down to 0. And I actually like to do it 10%. It just gives a little bit more of a left-right. And it's barely perceptible, but it makes a difference. And when you have something like a timpani solo, which Fandango has, you can go ahead and, if you get a good submission, which I did, thank you, you can spread the audio there a little bit more, and you'll hear it in the headphones left-right. I'm digressing, which I will do frequently, I think. So I pan within the section to get a little bit of a spread from left to right within the section, and I do that on the individual submissions here. And then within the folders, I then pan the folder, and that's how I locate the section within the ensemble. So there is like an actual location for each section within your sound space. So as you're listening to these mixes, you will hear the clarinets on the left, the trumpets a little bit on the left, the altos and the horns on the right, the flutes on the right, the oboes dead center, low brass dead center, timp dead center. You know, you'll hear that in your headspace if you pay attention to it, and that just gives it a realism, a very, you know, very palpable, very, you can sense that realism. And there's a couple other tricks I do that make it sound more real and less like a collection of, you know, each individual recording and recorded in different spaces under different conditions. So, as I said, digressing, but I will narrow it down, each individual submission. I will pan the submissions within the section, and then my very first step is to load the file, right? So I will go in here and I will pull in my own clarinet part, which is right here. There we go. So clarinet is loaded in. You can see it, the big green one here. And then I'll do a very rough alignment. So what I'm doing here now is I'm pulling that clap over to where I've marked my clap point. All right. So, oh, that's the start. Sorry about that. To where I've marked my clap point. There we are. Hello, clap. And so you know, everyone claps at a very slightly different point. In general, you don't want the very start of the sound. You want a little bit more of the meat of the sound, but everything is different, and this is just a starting point. Because what you'll discover is that not only will you need to fine-tune the global alignment for each clip, but you will, depending on your threshold for messy, you will need to individually realign sections of the music. Slow stuff tends to require a lot of aligning because it's very hard for people to subdivide and line up. That's tough to do under the recording conditions that we're all doing when we record for these projects. So let me show you real quick what that looks like. So here we go. Up here, I have the click track. Okay, so the click track was part of the materials that were produced as support materials for the recording process. You have a click track, you have a backing track. So you're playing with music and you're playing to the click. You can hear the click. And then what I do then, I have the click from then on, and I can use that click track to line up your music. So now you're looking and you're seeing the waveforms for the click, and you're seeing the waveforms for my track. And you can start to see whether it's aligned or not. let's just go in real quick. Yeah, let's go into this multo-rit section here. So there is, in Fandango, there is one point where the band does a ritardando together, full ensemble, and I'm going to show you the process that I would use for aligning that. So first of all, you can see, now what you're seeing right now up here, you're seeing the click. Here's the click track, and then I'm overlaying the individual part that I just loaded in. And you can see that they're not lining up. They're off. And this happens everywhere. Again, it's your threshold of what you want to fix. Obviously, you can, this mix took me about 30 hours, and I did not go super nuts. I aligned the sections that needed to sound together. But you're aligning each individual instrument. And so it does take a lot of doing. And that's after the gross alignment. But so what I would do is I would use stretch points. You can kind of see those. I'm adding stretch points right now. You always want to add on either side of what you're working with. I add 2 because that allows me to, you can stretch without impacting things to the left or to the right. So right now I'm going to line up the first part of that wave. I'm going to line up the back part of that wave, and that'll change the front part a little bit. And so you see that's better, but still I was way off on the inside when I recorded this. So I'm going to go ahead and add a couple stretch points throughout the process, and then I'm going to start aligning a little better here each individual beat. And you can start to see how this works out. Now this one I can pull, all of those are early, right? So I can pull this one over, but I'm still dealing with an issue. I don't want to adjust that anymore, so I add that stretch point there, add a stretch point there, and now I can kind of fix in the middle here a little better. Kind of, wow, I did it better. Anyway, so what the main thing that you don't want to do is you don't want to add a stretch point anywhere where there's music. You want to try to find the dips, the valleys, and add your stretch points there. Otherwise, you will hear where the rates jump, where it goes from 97% to 89%, or anytime that you can use your stretch points strategically to get your clip back to 1.0, back to full rate, and just slide it around with the stretch marks, that's going to be preferable, because then you won't have the clicks as the stretching occurs. But you get used to working with these audios and figuring out where you can add stretch points without hearing them. So now we should have a good stretch here. All right, great. That's lined up. Wonderful. Now, what you're seeing when you look at that last note, you see that you can't see the wave. What's going on there? Well, actually the first step, I jumped ahead a little bit. Sorry, guys. I got excited and got into aligning. After the gross alignment, the very first step that I do is I get everyone on a level playing ground from a loudness standpoint, because that's how all of my balances are set up. They're set up for everyone to be leveled at the same point at their very first clip, with that very first input clip. So the way to do that, the way that I do that at least, is I choose a section in the music where everyone should be mostly playing at a solid forte, right? And then I'm going to play that over and over again. And I'm going to use first I'm going to set myself to 0 here at the volume, so that I'm going into my folder at a 0 point. And then I'm going to use a loudness meter, which I'm going to show you right here. I'm going to use a loudness meter, and I'm playing one particular click, one particular section of the music, and I'm watching for the loudness. That's going to get very annoying very quickly, isn't it? Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop there. Wow, I didn't think that one all the way through. So actually that's 27.9. That's pretty close. That's too loud. I level at 30. So I'm going to go ahead, and if you look in here, you can see that each of these clips has a little item volume. And so almost everyone comes in too loud. It's very rare that someone will come in too quiet. And so what I'll do first is I'll go ahead and drag down there until my loudest waves are fully within my view window of the track, my track view. I like to be able to see the full wave. I don't like them when they're up above the track and clipped off like that. So that's step one. I like that. That's pretty good. And now I'll go back to the loudness and see how much that impacted it. And so yeah, that dragged it down to 31, 32 or so now. So 32 is too quiet. So now what I'll do is I'll go in. I don't want to mess with the wave anymore. So now I clicked on the effects. So these are all plugins. Every track can have plugins. Every folder can have plugins. The master bus can have plugins. And I use a fairly standard setup. The track, I usually have a noise gate, which means that when the volume gets below a certain point, it brings it all the way down. It chokes it down to 0, so that paper rustling or people moving around or something like that is typically quieter than they're playing, and that gets cut off, and I don't have to worry about finding that kind of stuff and silence it. So I use a gate, fairly standard setup at -40 dB as the threshold, and that works pretty well for me. And then I have a volume plug-in after the gate. That's important, has to go after. And then this is where, after I've got the waves visually the way that I like them, I will go into the volume smoother, the volume plug-in, and that's where I adjust. So right now this is set at -17, which is a little too quiet for this clip. So I'll bring it up to, I wanted to get rid of 2, so I'll bring it up to -15. Oops. I will attempt to bring it up to -15. Okay, so now that, with that one set, that should give me a fairly right around 30 for my LUFS. LUFS stands for loudness unit full scale, and that's what this meter is. That's a type of measurement of loudness. And so I equalize everyone in the same section to 30. That's my starting point. All right, so once that's done, I will go ahead and close these guys down. And no, I'm going to actually leave them open because I'm going to show you something else that I do. So now I've got everyone, I've got myself loaded in, I've got it aligned. I already showed you how I do individual alignment points, but as part of the loading process, I will also go through and I will check tuning. All right, so what you're seeing right here, or you're seeing this wave. So that is my intonation. And I will go ahead and look at a large selection for people to get a feel for their intonation. Because, instruments have, some notes are bad, some ranges are bad. So I don't want to make a snap decision based on one little clip or one little note. So I look at a little bit more and then decide whether and how much they need a global adjustment. And I know that this clarinet clip does not need any adjustment, so I'm not going to do it. But I will show you how I would do that. If I needed to do that, I would go back to the track, and I'm going to double click on the track, and that pulls up its item properties. And then down here you have a pitch adjust semitones. And so this is cents of adjustment. And there are people who are 10 cents sharp, 15 cents sharp, 20 cents sharp, some of you flutes, and you know who you are. Anyway, so I'll pull you down here, -0.1. Let's just do -0.2, and so you can see that. I've just set it for -0.2. Let's go back to the tuning plugin, and let's play this again. Same section. Yeah, so did you see all those waves move? That it brings everything down. Okay, so I don't want to do that, obviously. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to set this back to 0. Okay, good deal. And then I will show you one other thing that I can do with the tuning plugin. It's very powerful. It's very helpful. Let's see here. Oh yeah, this is a nice section. Yeah, what is this section? Oh yeah, that's a beautiful section. Let's see how in tune it is, right? Okay, so a little bit of, oh yeah, okay, so There's some of these bottom notes are a tiny bit sharp. I'm not going to worry usually about a minor variation like that from note to note. Like I said, the global adjustment is the most important part. And after that, I typically will use my ears and then fix what is drastically out. So if this note, for example, that's not sharp enough to really cause any problem, but if it were, I have the option to do manual corrections, which is this. That's where I am. I'm on the manual corrections tab, and I've got it set up for a 0 attack time. So it adjusts it right away. You can set it up so that it pulls it down gradually, but you don't. I don't find that that's works very well with this. And then I simply drag. And so you see that blue line? I've now brought that pitch down. And it sounds really bad, doesn't it? Sometimes it sounds good, sometimes it does not. And in this case, it has a kind of sour sound to it. That's better. So sometimes the sourness comes from the attack. And so changing where it starts will get rid of that little perceptible bump you hear at the beginning. Or changing that attack time can work too. But in this case, I would not correct that. It's not worth it. But for the held pitches especially, those would be, I would go through and make sure that they're right on, as long as it doesn't change the tone of things. So you get a feel for the kind of power that you have with the plugins for each track. And obviously you can go nuts with this, but there's a balance, right? So the balance is what I tell my musicians is that I want to fix the things that they would fix if they were playing live. So a lot of the alignment problems that you run into when you're mixing, you guys would fix. You would be on it. You'd be watching the director. You'd be listening. You'd be doing your musical thing. So I will fix alignment in most cases where it's pretty drastic, when it's significantly off. Intonation, I will globally tune you guys, and that's giving you the benefit of the doubt, right? I'm assuming that you all are just so good at taking that pitch before rehearsal and fine-tuning your instruments that you're all going to be globally in tune. So like I said, that's an optimistic assumption, obviously, but I have the power to do it, so I do it. I make sure that we're starting at a good globally in tune state, and then I will listen and I will tune pitches that jump out as drastically bad with that manual correction as best I can. Okay, so that is a look at loading in a track. That is a look at aligning individual sections of that track with stretch points. That's a look at global tuning, and that's a look at the balance point of what when I bring in a track. So my very next step would be to, after I've got everyone loaded in, I then go in and I will tune the section. Not tune the section, sorry. I will go in and I will balance the section, right? So what I want to hear is I want to hear all the parts, and I will adjust the levels, the general, the slider, the fader levels over here until I hear a good balance within the section, musically what I want to hear out of that section. Fandango's a great piece. I had a lot of fun putting in 30 hours to mix this piece. It's beautiful. So balancing the section, and then after I've got each section balanced, I then go out and I globally, using the folders up here, right? I globally balance the entire ensemble. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and, here, I have to look around the camera. Sorry, guys. I know that's awkward. Yeah. I then would go back out, and I would, let's pick a good, somewhere like there's probably a good starting point. So I'm looking for overall global tuning of the ensemble things are lining up. I can hear all the instruments. Oh, it's just so fun. And that takes a while to fine tune the starting point. And that's not about individual sections. That's not about the changes in dynamics that happen throughout the course of the music, the different the different ensembles that are created by the composition. That's just about the global balance. And then, okay, so that's all done. And now I can go in and start. Everything's aligned, everything's leveled, everything's balanced, everything's tuned. And then I can go in and start to make the music, shape the music, work the clay a little bit, right? And so what that involves typically is pulling out lines that need to come out, and then making things quieter, making things louder, just all together. I don't do that too much. I typically will balance with each individual section, each individual instrument group. And so what you're seeing here, let's look at the clarinets again. This is the folder that holds all the clarinets. And then this is the trim volume, which is adjustments to the overall fader level of the clarinets, which is where I set the original balance for the ensemble. And then, so what you're seeing here is you're seeing that I've dropped the clarinets a little bit over 4 decibels for this whole section. And then I've brought them back up a little bit above 0 for that section. Then I've dropped them here again, and just these general changes throughout to suit the balance of that section. And then this section, this was that slow section where I wanted the clarinets to come to the fore a little bit. And then I bring them back down. And now they're quiet again, and the oboe is up. You can hear the oboe here. I brought the oboe up there. And that clarinet part was a solo, so I brought it up on the individual track. And then that section right there, that was trombones and horns. And I brought them down. Here's the horn folder. I brought them down. Here's the trombone folder. I brought them down. The tubas, or euphoniums and tubas, are in there as well. I had to bring them down. So that's every point along the way. You're making these subtle adjustments to things. And there's just a lot of listening, a lot of time. But it's amazing because as a director, if you're a band director and you're looking at, you can do everything. You can do all the things that you wish the band would take from you in rehearsal. So this is basically as if we just had 30 hours of rehearsal to fine-tune Fandango. How amazing would that be, right? It doesn't happen. These kinds of fine-tuned points, you get 15, 20 minutes on a piece in rehearsal, maybe 8 to 10 rehearsals before a concert. That's your time. So you have fantastic musicians who are doing a lot of this on their own. So again, it's that thing that I will do what you guys would do as musicians in a live performance. Because you're going to do these swells. You're going to bring the volume down. You're going to bring your line out. You're going to do all those things musically when you were playing live. We're not playing live here. You were recording in your front room with your headphones on. So it's wonderful clay to work with, and I really do get a kick out of it. And then one last thing that I'll point out here, after I've kind of shaped things, now there is reverb, and that's a tricky thing to play with, because first of all, each recording that you're getting is coming from a different room, so they all have a different amount of room sound baked into the recording. Some people are recording in their hallway with hardwood floors and narrow walls. Other people are in a carpeted bedroom next to their bed. The proximity of the instrument comes across in the recording. And so reverb is a tool, a plug-in, a tool to try to balance that a little bit throughout the band. I typically like a drier input from you guys. So I do ask you to minimize the amount of room noise in your recording so that I can tune it up as we need, because I can't take it out once it's in, but I can add it in judiciously. And so typically what I do is I'll let it be dry within the individual parts for the most part, and then I'll add some reverb to the master track up here at the very end. This master track is where I make any full volume adjustments, and those are very minor. Like I'll maybe bring a section down a couple of decibels or up a decibel globally, the entire thing. I try to do that very minimally because you can usually hear those jumps unless I do them very small. And then reverb is also up here. And so that allows me to set an overall reverb for the group, which I'll show you what I did. So here's the reverb plugin, and I use a 75. Is my room size. That's fairly big. The default is here at 50. 75 is up. I don't change the defaults on anything down there. I leave the full dry, which means unaffected sound in the sound, and then I take out the wet, which is the affected sound. I dial that way down. That's pretty low. So this is a fairly minimal reverb, because I find that a lot of these recordings that people have done, there's so much reverb, and it just sounds fake. It sounds fake. So I would prefer to err on the side of transparency of what this is. It's a collection of individual recordings, and it's going to be a little dry, and I'm okay with that. I add a little bit of reverb, and then there were some points in this music where I actually dialed the reverb up quite a bit at the very end, just for that, to get that ringing effect at the end. Here, let's play here. Do I have things silenced? I don't know. Yeah. So you need that ring. You need that ring, or that's part of the music. That's part of the piece. That gap there is the anticipation, and that ring is the physical embodiment of the anticipation, right? So you need it a little bit, but you don't want it to be fakey. So there's a balance to find there with reverb. And then what I will also do is I will solo parts. I will make sure that they have, you're looking right here at that oboe solo. So I gave her a little reverb. Yeah, it's just, oh gosh, I gotta let you listen to the horn part. I'm trying not to call out individual musicians because you are all fantastic. I love you all. We had a fantastic horn solo submission. Yeah, so I gave him a little reverb too, just to, he was in a very dry room, as was the oboe part. And beyond that, the high and the low instruments, like I said, I do not reverb them. The high instruments, the flutes and the clarinets, I do give the section just a little bit of reverb. Those tend to be, you can tell, perceptible when they're too dry. So each of those folders also has a reverb plug-in with a very light and very small. Look, the room size is all the way down to 30, and it's minus 15 on the wet. It's a very light reverb, but it makes a difference with those two sections. Could probably do it on oboe too, but anyway, I'm getting a bit off track. So there you go, folks. That is how I mix, and it's a elaborate process, but it's fun for me, and I hope that you all appreciate when you get those recordings emailed out to you, how good you sound. I'm trying to give you the best possible version of the concert band. So in this case, Bel Air Community Band, bravo, fantastic performance of Fandango. My other bands, Chesapeake Concert Band, Bay Winds, you have also, obviously, produced fantastic results out of this process, and I can't do that without very, very good submissions throughout the band, and you've all done that, without exception. So exceptional performances, fantastic results out of the mixing process. And then when I'm done mixing, then I switch over to the video editor, which is a whole other tutorial video here. Thank you so much for your time. I believe this got a bit long, but it's all there if you want to see it. If you want to do it, all my tips and tricks are out there in the wild now. So thank you for watching. Enjoy the musical pursuits that are available to you in these times, and I look forward to when we can be together again, rehearsing and performing live.